Everyone in reselling is always shouting about thinking big. Big flips, big profits, big items, big inventories, big sourcing trips. But what if thinking small is the way to go? That is how I built my reselling business. I specialize in embracing smaller profits, small items, small packages, small sourcing trips, and it's actually added up to big results. In fact, I've built my entire reselling business around a concept I call profit density. And I'm gonna try to show you exactly what that looks like in this video. This video is for anyone from the brand new people to the seasoned vets. Literally anyone who just wants to make better use of limited time, space, or sourcing options. So let's think small. Let's think dense. Less Jupiter, more neutron star. Roll the intro. I was really putting the cosmic in Cosmic Deal Heather with that analogy, huh? But it's true. When you think Cosmic Deal Heather, I want you to think she is the queen of smalls, because that's truly where I shine. Over on my Instagram, I'm always yapping about churning smalls. And if you want to know my entire business model, I've been putting it out there for years for you to copy. I do really okay with my business. You can go fact check all my previous videos if you don't believe me. This is literally a system I truly believe in. When I say the queen of smalls, I mean both the small profit flips and the physically small items. I call this profit density. The most money I can make off the smallest item while paying the least amount for it is exactly what I'm after. This is just how I've chosen to set my business up within my own personal limitations. It works for me. I feel like it'll also work for most other people, because at the end of the day, I don't think most of us are working with an abundance of space. It's really easy to watch the other people kind of at my level profit-wise and see that they're working out of their whole garage, their whole basement, or they have a big storage unit, or they have an outbuilding or something. I don't work out of any of that, and don't try and give me a gotcha like, Heather, you have a storage unit, what are you talking about? I went for years without having that storage unit, and that's more for my retail arbitrage business. Especially in this video where we're just talking about my thrift reselling aspect of my business, I work out of totes in my closet in my house. Anybody can do that. Anybody can probably spare one closet in their house. One closet that can fit 6 totes in it. And maybe a very realistic goal of just making $10,000 on the side their first year. Now, would you rather they fill those 6 plastic bins with large items like blenders, motorcycle helmets, bulky electronics like VCRs and CD changers, vacuum parts, pots and pans, that sort of thing? You know, the kind where you can only fit a few of those items per bin? Or would you rather fill those bins in that limited amount of space with the most amount of small items that could make them money? So let me show you how this idea of thinking small actually plays out in my reselling business with 3 of my favorite categories. For example, I love selling dolls. You can fit about 100 Barbie or so size dolls in like one plastic tote. In 2024 alone, I sold 109 thrifted dolls. And from those thrifted dolls, I had a net profit of $1,561.40. Meaning whatever your current situation is, whether you're just starting out or you're an existing reseller, you could potentially add an extra $1,500 into your net profit for the year, like just adding one small category. Now, I'm not advocating for you to blindly go into dolls, especially if you don't know anything about dolls and dolls don't interest you. It's just one example of how small can add up. If dolls aren't your thing, let's talk about perfumes, another favorite category of mine. Perfumes tend to be small and they also tend to be really valuable. In 2024 alone, I sold 70 bottles of perfume. That gave me a net profit of $2,340.87. Again, one small item category, over $2,000 added to my profit. Another extremely profit dense category is digital cameras. In 2024, I sold 41 digital cameras, which gave me a net profit of $1,791.24. Like, even if I had all 41 of those cameras at the same time, I don't think they would fill up one entire bin. There are literally so many categories of small items you could add to your business. Most of what I buy doesn't fall neatly into one category. It's just a lot of miscellaneous smalls I bought very cheaply. Because part of being profit dense is that you are not spending a lot of money on these items either. Small, light, and cheap. So this fact is really gonna wow you. 90% of the items I thrifted and sold in 2024, I paid $10 or less for, with the majority of items, or 78%, actually being stuff that I paid $5 or less for. We're talking beauty products, toys, action figures. Literally anything except clothing and shoes is really my business. And if we look at the flip side of that equation, 93% of my thrifted items sold in 2024 were shipped for $10 or less, with 43% being $5 or less. So that indeed should prove to you that the majority of my items sold are physically small. We're talking less than 12 by 12 by 12, and in many cases, those $5 or less are probably fitting in my standard 6 by 4 by 4 box, which is like the gold standard for me. This is what I mean by profit density. Money packed into a small, dense, neutron star-like package. If selling smalls and going smalls sounds scary to you, I don't blame you. Because the first thing I did when I transitioned from being a part-time seller, you know, just kind of like selling stuff on eBay on the side while I had a real job, to going full-time, was making my peace with smaller profit flips. Because I don't know about you, but when I was selling part-time on the side, I really only focused on like the cherry picked items, like an item that I could buy and make $25 or more on. I would pick them up here and there as I found them. I wouldn't find them all the time, but when I found one, it was like, great. If you can sustain that kind of picking into a full-time ramp up, great. I know that I personally was not able to consistently find those same cherry pick flips, even if I was putting more time into thrifting. I personally don't think that everyone in every area can land those kind of cherry pick flips with great consistency. So the one thing you can do that's like actually within your control is start accepting lower profit items, because there are far more of those out there than the cherry picks. For example, in 2024, I sold a total of 417 thrifted items that I made $10 or less on. But those 417 items brought me an additional $2,707.18 net profit. For some people, that could be one mortgage payment. For others, that's 3 mortgage payments. On just thrifted items, that brought me in $10 or less net profit. If I would have stuck to the cherry picks only, I would have been missing out on that money. Because like I said, it's way easier to find these lower profit flips than it is to get the higher ones. Now, not everything in that 417 thrifted items was items that I went out of my way to pick up. Some of it was stuff that came in like toy bags, like I bought the bag for one specific item and it's got all this other stuff in it. I always look up that bycatch and see if there's anything worth squeezing a little bit of extra money out of. Of that 417 thrifted items that made me $10 or less, 98 made me $5 or less, which accounted for $334.82. Now, obviously that means the majority of items I thrifted and sold in 2024 were items that I made more than $10 a piece on. While it's important to keep your eyes out for those best cherry pick flips, because obviously who doesn't want a bag full of cherries, it's important to not be overlooking all the little $5 and $10 you could be stepping over in pursuit of making $25. Because honestly, who doesn't want an almost extra $3,000 a year from picking up those smalls? But Heather, squeezing that $3,000 takes work. If I'm already at the store and I already have my system going through where the stuff comes home, it gets photographed, it gets put away, it literally does not add any extra work to throw a couple of like cheap items in there. It literally did not feel like extra work to me to try and get that extra $3,000. Like it, at no point did it feel like work. It was just another small, smart decision that added up to big. On average, I actually only thrift about 1 to 2 days a week. Sometimes there's a third day in there if one of my favorite thrifts has a 50% off sale, but I'm doing at least once, maybe twice, rarely 3. And that's because I'm not just a solely thrift reseller. I also sell other things on my eBay that were not thrifted, and I do retail arbitrage on other platforms. But one small thrifting related change that I made was adding in a bins trip once per week. I personally only spend about 20 to 30 minutes a week at the bins, but from that once a week trip, just adding in that one little stop once a week, I sold $1,636.88 in additional net profit on just bins items. And it should go without saying that most of what I'm picking out of the bins is small, light, cheap stuff. It's honestly probably the #1 place you can go to get profit-dense items with consistency. On the topic of listing and the work involved to list, I thrifted and listed 1,031 items in 2024. So of the stuff that I went out and got at thrift stores, that's literally only 2 to 3 listings per day, or about 20 a week on average. And you want to know how much money that purely thrifted only thrifting once or twice a week made me? $22,813.19 in net profit in 2024. And that is just items that I specifically thrifted and sold within 2024. So I'm not counting the stuff that I thrifted in previous years that happened to sell in 2024, and I'm not counting the things that I thrifted in 2024 that didn't sell until 2025. So we're looking at just that self-contained thrifted and sold within 2024 number. And that 22,000 represents a relatively small percent of the 135,000 or so dollars that I made in 2024 in profit as a reseller / content creator, but it's still a decent chunk of money, and it represents what you can hope to achieve in one self-contained year of thrift reselling, specifically in a small way. You know, a way that I truly believe that most of you can do without paying too much for your items, without paying too much for shipping, without wasting a lot of space, without wasting a ton of time thrifting or packaging big bulky items. You can achieve that. I know you can. Sometimes it's hard for me to put into words the concept I'm trying to convey, so I hope you understand what I'm getting at when I mean profit density and churning smalls. And I hope you've been inspired to think small. If you want to see like actual examples of the miscellaneous profit dense stuff that I am picking up when I thrift, you're going to want to look at my Instagram, because I share the stuff I'm picking up at the thrift and the stuff I'm selling on eBay in my Instagram stories. And if you just want more of me that has very little to do with reselling, you're going to want to look at my TikTok. Of course, if you learned anything from this video, if it gave you a new perspective on reselling or helped to normalize the small grind, give this video a like. Leave a comment about your favorite little flip, because comments help my channel grow and get my videos out there more. And subscribe, because that really helps motivate me to keep making these kind of videos. And let me tell you, I have been really kind of burned out on reselling content recently. But I keep going because I know that you guys seem to like my videos. Now get out there, have fun, and find something small.